Well, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson saying the U.S. is sticking with the controversial Iranian nuclear deal. But he says there should be changes. And is even raising the possibility that there could be a second agreement with Tehran on the side of the current deal if Iran is really telling the truth about not wanting or developing a nuclear bomb.
Under the JCPOA, under the nuclear agreement, it may be that we're not able to reopen that agreement with everyone being willing to play, but it doesn't mean we cannot undertake negotiations to address the areas of concern, which are the ballistic missile program, the sunset provisions, expiry provisions, and perhaps lay a second agreement down alongside of this agreement.
Can that be addressed? Daniel Hoffman joins us, Vice President of the Sonorian Policy Group, former senior executive of the Clandestine Service Officer for the CIA. Daniel, good to see you. What are the chances, as the Secretary of State just said, of a second reworking of a side agreement to address some of those concerns?
Well, I think it's pretty challenging. We're playing catch up a little bit. You know, the president said in his speech on Friday that he'd ordered a comprehensive review of our Iran policy, and I think what he found is that the Obama administration had made essentially a Faustian bargain with Iran, whereby in the interest of signing a nuclear agreement, which had some good points about halting Iran's nuclear weapons program, that we made too many concessions.
Yeah, and that's exactly what, for example, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel has been saying. He's been a harsh critic of this. Today he was on Fox News channel. He was on Sunday Morning Futures, and he did say that there could be a second agreement. Here is Prime Minister Netanyahu.
I think the reason they say they want to keep the deal is because they think that changing it would mean canceling it. But the president said something very astute. He said, well, unless you change it, I'm going to cancel it. So if you want to save the deal, start fixing it. And that's exactly the right. So it takes time until governments actually understand the significance of what the president put forward.
So, you know, Rouhani in Iran, you know that the EU partners, they say, no, we're not going to change the deal. But there's some light there. I mean, you got Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, saying, yeah, we got to address the ballistic missiles.
Right. I think there's three areas of concern, and it's up to us to convince those with whom we negotiated that we do need to make some changes. The first area of concern is that the sanctions relief allows Iran to spend additional money supporting Hezbollah, supporting those Shia militia groups in Iraq and elsewhere, which are conducting such lethal attacks on us and on our allies. They've supported the Houthis in Yemen and provided lethal equipment to the Taliban in Afghanistan. And so we have to be, I think, very, very seriously concerned about the extent to which the significant amount of money the Iranians are now taking in is finding its way to the IRGC and other nefarious policies of the Iranians.
And that's like $100 billion. I mean, they're funding terrorism, they say. It's like $100 billion, and they're still on the state sponsor list at the State Department of the leading #1 state sponsor of terrorism in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you know, since 2010 and the onset of the Arab Spring, the region has been engulfed with violence unprecedented since the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and the Iranians are just pouring gasoline on the flames, and that's resulting in sectarian violence, a breeding ground for extremism, both on the Sunni and the Shia side. We've spilled an enormous amount of blood and treasure in that region and in Afghanistan, and Iran is absolutely operating at odds with our U.S. national security interests.
Yeah, and at the same time, the Obama administration agrees with this deal. You can't go to the military sites. I mean, if they suspect maybe there was some nuclear stuff there, then they could go. They went to Parchin once. What type of deal is this that says, no, you can't come to the military sites? How does the UN inspectors actually know what's going on those military sites? They got to take the Iranians' word for it?
Right. Well, that's a second issue for sure, the fact that Iran is developing a ballistic missile capability which can threaten the region and beyond. And it really does put the onus on our intelligence community to collect that intelligence on what Iran is up to. Remember, in 2009, we discovered that the Iranians had built an underground enrichment facility in Fordo, which they had not disclosed to the IAEA. And so really the onus is on our intelligence community to ensure that we do all that we can to ensure that the Iranians aren't doing something that we can't track. And it's also important for us to share with our allies the extent to which that Iranian money that we're freeing up is going to those nefarious purposes in the interests of convincing them. And it will be a tall task to add on additional agreements so that we can enhance our security.
They're not supposed to, spend that money on terrorism. I mean, honestly, is there really a way to track the money? Once it gets over into Tehran, we're not going to be able to track it. How do they know that they're not using it to fund something against Israel right now as we speak?
Right. I think we can definitely collect the intelligence that will give us some confidence, some level of confidence that a certain percentage of that money is making its way towards enhancing Iran's capability and throw weight in the region.
And when we talk about throw weight, that sounds like missiles. Why do they need an intercontinental missile? They say it's for defense, right? That's talking about going to another continent, let alone striking Israel or our troops in Europe. And why was that left out of the deal in the first place? They made this deal, and it doesn't deal with their behavior. It doesn't deal with the money. It doesn't deal with ballistic missiles. It doesn't deal with terrorism. It deals with that one issue, yes, the nuclear issue. But now you got them popping off missiles that something potentially one day could hit the U.S.
Right. The other concern is the sunset provisions. So right now, Iran is about a year away, breakout for a nuclear weapon. But once the agreement expires, it would be 2 to 3 months. And so I think, cognizant of what we've seen with North Korea, if you allow Iran to develop the ICBM capability while over the next 10 years or so enriching themselves with sanctions relief, that they could have the capability that North Korea has today with an ICBM and the potential for a nuclear weapon attached to it. And I think that's what concerns the administration, is that we don't go down a path which 10, 15 years from now could result in significantly diminishing our national security.
Yeah, I mean, finally, dude. You're talking about 10 years. Do you think they're just playing out the clock? If they said, yeah, we'll sign this agreement now, we'll just wait, because in 10 years they will have a free path, say the critics, to a nuclear bomb.
Well, I think we had our boot on their throats with the sanctions, and we kind of took it off. And I think they needed that desperately in order to conduct the sorts of policies they are right now in the Middle East and beyond. And I think that they would take 10 years of economic growth with the idea that they could then pursue a nuclear weapon if they chose. They may not choose to do that, but they would certainly have the capability to do so if we don't do something about it.
Well, the president may be now taking some actions and getting that boot out of the closet, so we'll see what happens. Daniel Hoffman, as always, thank you for your analysis tonight.
Thank you.
Good to see you.